Thank you very much. And as was just said, I am going to start today by talking to you about building and promoting your employer brand. And I'm going to use the story of Alice and my own personal experiences to do that. So let's start at the very beginning. Here I am back in April 2015. I'm conscious that I'm speaking to a very global audience today, so I thought I'd choose a photograph with a very typical Irish backdrop to mark the occasion. You can almost see the 40 shades of green here that we're famous for. This photo was taken on a hike near where I grew up in County Tipperary. I didn't realise it at the time, but I was about to make one of the bravest decisions of my life, to leave the PR agency where I'd worked for almost a decade and strike out on my own. When I did that a few months later, I had no business plan. I had only my final month's salary to live on. And in the first few weeks of working for myself, I managed to both smash my brand new laptop and lose all of the contacts from my mobile phone, business and media and political contacts that I'd built up over many years. So, for about 6 months after those first two fiascos, I worked mostly from my kitchen table. And this was long before COVID, before working from home became somewhat fashionable. Luckily, I became busy quite quickly. And within a few months, I hired people as part time contractors. I needed to bring in others to work with me to meet demand. And then in early 2016, I hired my first full time employee. Throughout this period, I had very little time for branding. After a few months, I did invest in getting a logo designed and I set up some social media channels to promote Alice. But we were operating for well over a year before we had the time to build a proper website for the company. And I certainly wasn't thinking about building our brand as an employer at that time. Now, fast forward to 2023, and here I am just last month with most of my Alice colleagues. We've grown to over 20 team members over the past 8 years. We've opened an office in Belfast as well as in Dublin. And we've worked with really interesting clients on some really important campaigns and won quite a few awards along the way, including, as mentioned, the Inspiring Workplaces accolade earlier this year. One of the things that I'm most proud of amongst all our achievements, however, is the way that our employees feel about Alice. That first full-time team member who I mentioned, who joined me back in early 2016, she's still with us. That's her at the back of this photograph, dressed all in black in the middle. In fact, we're very lucky in relation to retention levels in general. A quarter of all of our employees have been with us since our first year in business, and 2/3 have been with the company for 4 years or more, sorry. In our most recent survey of employees, which was conducted independently and anonymously, of course, 100% of the team said they were satisfied with Alice compared to other places that they've worked. 91% said they feel valued at work, and the same proportion said they would reapply for their job if given the chance. When people join Alice, they tend to talk about our culture and values as a huge draw. When we recruit, we get significantly higher numbers of quality applicants than others in our sector. And even when people leave us in their exit interviews and feedback, they typically talk about how much they enjoyed their time with us and valued the workplace culture we've created. One of our long-serving team members, Emily Brennan, very sadly finished up with us just in recent weeks. And this is a post that she shared on LinkedIn summarising her experience of working with Alice for 7 years. So I feel very lucky to say we have built a strong employer brand. But why am I here this morning? What advice can I offer companies that want to do the same thing? Well, my number one piece of advice is to be authentic. Your workplace culture will not be attractive, it will not feel real, it will not have longevity unless it is grounded in authenticity. So, as leaders in your workplace, think about what matters to you and what matters to your stakeholders, and then convey that in a credible and authentic way. At Alice, in the early days, because we were a startup company, our company culture evolved in a very organic way. I'm not a formal person. I like to have fun at work. I use bad language more than I should. I socialize with my work colleagues and clients. And some of my best friends are people who I've met through work over the years. But I also have a very serious side. I'm a stickler for standards. I like people to always do the best work they can and to take huge pride in their work, no matter how trivial the task. I want to work with people who will help each other out during the most busy and stressful times, who care about their teammates and aren't just out for themselves. And I want to do work that matters, that makes a positive change in the world. So all of those influences gradually seeped into the company culture at Alice. In the early days, I was the person literally writing all the social media content and responding to all recruitment and new business queries. So, of course, the tone of voice and working style and culture we developed was very heavily influenced by me as the company founder. Over time, then, as we moved out of our startup phase, I was able to think not just about the sort of workplace that I wanted to create, but also the sort of workplace that my growing team deserved. My point here is that to be authentic, you need to consider not only what matters to the company's owners or leadership team, but also what matters to your employees. What are their interests and likes and dislikes, and how can you accommodate those in a reasonable way at work? In our case, we have a young and very politically minded workforce. We work on progressive communications campaigns, so we tend to attract employees with quite liberal views. They are supportive of LGBTQ plus rights, for example. They do not tolerate sexism or racism or ableism or classism. And it's important to them that their workplace reflects their progressive views. So we are outspoken about our support for causes such as LGBTQ plus rights, gender equality, and anti-racism initiatives. We hold team events to mark International Women's Day, Pride, and so on. But we also make sure that we support those causes year round. So to take LGBTQ plus rights, for example, here we are marking Pride in different years. But then here we are also, long after the Pride season has passed, sponsoring the galas and award ceremony for the LGBTQ plus community and taking a table at the Rainbow Ball, a fundraiser in support of young queer people. We also provide pro bono PR support to a trans rights group, and we work with other LGBTQ plus groups, offering them discounted rates. One of our clients, LGBT Ireland, recently ran an Empowering Anthems campaign as part of National Coming Out Day, where they invited people to share songs and music that makes them feel empowered, and then to make a donation to support their work. And as a team, we had great fun creating an Alice playlist to support that campaign, backed up, of course, by a financial donation. So we are demonstrating our authenticity to our team members. We don't just say we support liberal causes, we go out there and actively support them in very real, tangible, and visible ways. Not all companies, of course, will be comfortable supporting progressive causes so publicly, or they might not have the freedom to do so. Indeed, it might not even be authentic for you to do so. But your employee engagement can most certainly be authentic without having to be political. My next piece of advice in relation to your employer brand is to make sure it is truly aligned with your purpose and values. What I'm talking about here is avoiding greenwashing or rainbow washing or paying lip service to causes or values that really do not reflect the true position of your company. Employees are way too savvy and way too cynical nowadays to fall for that. And indeed, so are consumers. We can all now see very quickly through shallow value propositions. Employer branding cannot happen in a silo. It needs to be fully integrated with your business strategy and the actions you are taking to achieve that strategy. And your employer brand should mirror and complement your consumer brand and vice versa, because they should both be firmly underpinned by your purpose and values. So, for example, you can't expect to attract and retain talent by talking about your green credentials if in reality you're involved in activities that are contributing to the climate emergency. Or you can't expect your employees to enthusiastically join you in marking International Women's Day if you have a long-standing gender pay gap. There have been some well-documented examples of companies who have gotten this wrong. I don't know if any of you listening have come across an Instagram influencer called Venetia Lamana. She campaigns against fast fashion and has over 220,000 followers. She constantly calls out fashion brands for their hypocrisy. Here you can see images from her Instagram feed from the 9th of March, the day after International Women's Day, when she called out the fashion brands Pretty Little Things and Boohoo for marking International Women's Day, despite the fact that they don't pay their female garment workers a fair wage. Another example of a brand whose public proclamations contradicted their actions is Innocent Drinks. They were accused of greenwashing after running an ad that linked buying their smoothies to helping to save the environment. An advocacy group called Plastics Rebellion led a campaign against their ad, and it was eventually banned by the UK's Advertising Standards Authority as it was deemed to be misleading. How do you think that made employees of Innocent Drinks feel? And imagine the consequences for recruitment as well as employee retention. If you're thinking of applying for a job now with Innocent Drinks and you Google the company, these are the sorts of articles that you'll see. In an era where we're hearing more and more about how Gen Z want jobs with purpose, it's not going to leave a good impression on potential new hires if your company has been publicly called out for this type of hypocritical behaviour. These are very large-scale examples of corporate hypocrisy, but this can also happen at a much smaller scale too. So imagine if your employer brand emphasises how welcoming a workplace you are and how fairly you treat all employees. But then someone new joins and they experience bullying and harassment. And when they go and report that, their claim is dismissed as frivolous. That's a massive disconnect between what you're saying publicly and how you're behaving behind closed doors. So above all else, be honest and ensure everything you're saying, both in relation to employer branding and consumer PR, is backed up by what you're doing as a company. I'm conscious I'm focusing quite a lot on progressive causes here, and they might not necessarily apply to all workplaces. Your company might not be trying to change the world or to combat sexism or to halt the climate crisis. And that's okay. If your end goal is really just about expansion into new markets or generating more profit or any other commercial concerns, that's understandable. Just be upfront about that and find a way to communicate your employer brand that stays true to your core business strategy. As part of this, take some time to develop and refine your purpose and values. And once you've done that, revisit them every few years to make sure they still fit where you are as a company. We did a really interesting exercise at Alice last year where we reviewed our value proposition and redefined it. And as part of that, we updated our values and how we articulate them. As was mentioned in the introduction, our purpose as a company is to create change that makes Ireland and the world a better place. We do that by delivering ambitious communications campaigns for our clients, and we only work with clients that match our purpose and our values, that are committed to doing good in the world. So we tend to work with organisations that are tackling homelessness, for example, or addressing the climate emergency, supporting migrants and promoting integration, or offering training and education opportunities for all. While our external purpose is focused on improving the world, we do have that complementary internal purpose, which is to provide our employees with secure, sustainable career paths while ensuring they can lead happy and fulfilling lives. Because of the type of work we do and the type of clients we work with, we have to be really, really conscious of living our values. We can't go out there and proclaim to all and sundry that we are a values-driven company with honesty at our core and then be shown to have acted unethically in any way. Or we can't say that we're happy to partner with trade unions and human rights organisations and then be shown to pay our employees below the going rates. So we do lots of things to ensure our values are meaningful and our employees really buy into them in tangible ways. We have worked them into our performance review process, for example. We have visible representations of our values in our physical office spaces, and we use them to guide key business decisions, like whether we'll take on a new client or whether a potential new recruit is the right fit for the business. The next point that I want to touch on in relation to building a strong employer brand is the need to be flexible. Since our establishment, so again, well before COVID-19, we have offered flexible hours and remote working. In the early days of Alice, this allowed me to work with people I wanted to work with in ways that, as a startup, I could afford. So remember I spoke about working from my kitchen table and getting busy very quickly. Well, at that time, there were a few people on my radar who were available for part-time work. They had family commitments that meant they didn't want to work full-time hours, and they didn't necessarily want to work in a city centre office. So I started offering them contract work. And over the years, some of those people joined the team on a permanent basis. And they're now really key senior members of Team Alice, but they would never, ever have worked for us in the first place if we hadn't been able to provide flexibility. The COVID-19 pandemic obviously unleashed a whole new world of flexibility for employees. But there is talk in many quarters now of employers wanting their teams back in the office more and more. And I think that's something we should be very careful about. You can't grant people new perks and embed them over a period of 2 years as a normal part of working life and then roll back on them. Employers who come down really heavy on this will, I think, find it increasingly difficult to recruit and retain staff, and their employer brands will suffer as a result. Flexibility, of course, isn't just about remote working. It's really about respecting the fact that your team members have lives outside of work. So don't be rigid about time off to attend family events or to go to medical appointments or to look after personal business. And don't be rigid about start and end times for the working day. At Alice, we have flexible start and end times, and we encourage employees to finish by lunchtime every Friday, provided they've gotten through their week's work. Some of our employees, myself included, have very young children. So it maybe suits us best to do some work in the early mornings, and then after the kids have gone to bed, we might log on again later in the evenings to get things finished up. It suits others to start later in the day and to work right through. And that's fine, so long as everyone is getting their work done and showing up for the events and meetings that they need to be at. That brings me on nicely to my next point, which is to trust your employees. Over the course of my lifetime, technology has completely transformed how we all do our jobs. As I've just been saying, it has lessened the need for people to commute every day to a physical office. It has made it possible to join a meeting in London when you're on a beach in Spain, or for me to speak to you today from my house in Dublin, and for you to be wherever you are in the world. It has given us access to vast reserves of information and knowledge at the click of a mouse. And now, with the advent of AI, we are about to live through lots more change. Technology has given employees the means to work more autonomously and more flexibly than ever before. But it has also given employers ways to monitor everybody's work and track productivity and make sure all team members are accountable for every second of every day. If we want to have a positive employer brand, however, we need to resist our big brother urges. Nobody wants to work in a company where they feel they are being spied on or constantly monitored or not trusted to just do their job. In my own experience, you get infinitely better rewards from staff who feel respected and trusted to do their work without constant supervision. In addition to leaving staff alone to get on with their work, it's also important to involve them in bigger picture discussions about the company. I used to work in a place where the owner was compulsively secretive. I was her second in command, but I never knew how profitable the company was, how much she was paying people, and how much our clients were paying us. And that's why I left. I didn't want to work with someone who didn't trust me with that type of information. So at Alice, we are completely transparent with our team about the company financials. Staff members at all levels know what rates we charge and how we calculate those rates. And they are given regular updates on profitability and financial targets and any cost increases impacting on our work. We also give team members lots of leeway to come up with new ideas for Alice, whether that's content for our social channels or bigger business development ideas. We encourage people in all roles within the company to develop and drive new initiatives. And the result is that our team feels very bought in, not only to our current work, but also to our future growth, which is great. To go back to our employee survey from last December, 91% of our team said they feel kept informed of what's going on in the company, and the same proportion said they are proud to tell people that they work at Alice. Another thing that I found that has really helped our employer brand is to allow space for people's passion projects. We encourage our team members to join voluntary boards and to lend their skills to charitable causes that they're interested in. And we give them time to do this during their working day. I myself am currently the chair of the board of the Public Relations Consultants Association of Ireland, and I also sit on the boards of the International Communications Consultancy Organisation and Women's Aid. Other members of our team sit on the boards of Rosie's Trust, an animal welfare charity, Love Ballyhome, a local community group, Irish Families Through Surrogacy, and Belong To, an LGBTQ+ youth organisation. Now, it's not all about sitting on boards, of course. One member of our team is a major bookworm, and she asked recently if we could give some pro bono support to a campaign to promote Irish children's books and their authors, and we very happily did so. So she delivered all the work required, but we facilitated her to do that during her standard working hours. We've done similar in the past for other colleagues who wanted to help fundraisers in their local area, for example, or to contribute to projects that had personal resonance for them. Obviously, this is all much easier for me running an independent company with a team of 20 than it might be if you're working for a global corporation. I absolutely appreciate that as the company founder and owner, I've had the freedom to shape Alice's workplace culture in a way that really suited and appealed to me and to my colleagues. However, even if you are working in an organization where decision-making processes are more cumbersome, or you're at a level where you feel you don't have the power to really influence the employer brand, please rest assured the same principles of good employer branding apply, whether you're managing 20 people or 20,000. And to just recap on what those principles are, you need to be authentic, align your employer brand with your purpose and values, be honest about your business strategy, be flexible, trust your employees, and allow space for passion projects. If you do all of those things, you will reach the holy grail of employer branding, and that's for your employees to become your most effective and vocal brand ambassadors. If your employees truly love where they work, if they feel respected and valued and bought into the future of the company, they will, because this is 2023 that we're living in, share their views on social media and with the wider world. And that type of organic endorsement is the most valuable asset you can have in promoting your employer brand. So that's it from me for today. I hope that you found that useful. Thank you to Inspirathon and all of the team there for giving me the opportunity to speak today. And if anyone would like to find out more about Alice and the work we do, you can check out our website, alicepr.com, or please feel free to connect with me directly. Thank you very much.